This is Minding the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Hello, I'm your host, Jeff Zeringue, media specialist for the LFA. In Minding the Forest, we talk about all things forestry. Forest landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers in the state, such as lumber, paper, and pellet mills, all play an important role in the conservation and management of forests for the important renewable natural resource it is. Managed forests offer more for wildlife and water protection, so the LFA advocates to keep forests as forests. This episode of Minding the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office, or you can find them online at firstsouthland.com. We're talking about brown spot needle blight with Dr. Laura Sims of Louisiana Tech University in this episode of Mind of the Forest. It's a problem that's turning up in several places around Louisiana. We're talking with Dr. Laura Sims today. She is an assistant professor with the Department of Agricultural Sciences and Forestry at Louisiana Tech University. Dr. Sims, welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you in. Thanks for taking the time for us. Sounds like you have some nice ambient sounds. Where are you today?
I'm sitting in the Griffin Garden at Louisiana Tech University on the South Campus. It's a nice covered area and a beautiful day today. So
Perfect. Well, let's get into a little bit about the subject today. But first, let's talk about you. You came to Tech in 2018, I think you said. And where did you come from? Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I did my undergraduate degree in botany and plant pathology at North Carolina State University. And I wasn't ready to go to work yet. I was excited about learning. And so I went on to do my graduate work at Oregon State University because there was an opportunity there to work in forests, which is what I was really passionate about. So I went there and worked with under Dr. Everett Hansen. And when I got done with that, I moved on to the University of California at Berkeley. And I did research there for 4 years before coming to Louisiana Tech. And, well, I've been at Tech ever since.
Oh, great. Well, we're glad you came to Louisiana. You have been an integral part of that staff there, so welcome and glad you stay in. How did you get interested in forestry?
Oh, I mean, I've got family that's in forestry, and I guess just taking walks with my grandpa in the woods when I was a kid. And then when I was at NC State, I was doing some research in agriculture, but I started to help out in the herbarium, which is basically a library for plant samples. And I was working specifically on trees. And I seem to have a knack for identifying trees. And that work was just so exciting to me, even though I wasn't getting paid for it. So I decided I was really going to try to do something in forestry.
Well, if you're doing that and you're not getting paid for it, there has to be a passion for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Dr. Laura is also doing some studies on brown spot needle blight, which has shown up in Louisiana, and that has been a concern for landowners. Tell us a little bit about what brown spot needle blight is. Where did it come from?
Sure. So brown spot needle blight is a disease. It's been around for a long time, but right now it's a concern because it's an emerging problem on loblolly pine in particular. And loblolly is important to the forestry industry. It's a really big part of it. So the disease is caused by a pathogen. It's called an ascomycete pathogen based on the type of spores that it produces. And the name of that pathogen is Lecanosticta acicola.
Okay, for the lay people out there, when you hear a term like spores, that seem like a fungus or That's just a
Yeah,
little bit off
so
base.
yeah, it's a fungus. So the spores are kind of like the spores to a fungus are kind of like seeds to a tree. So
Hmm.
it's how the fungus moves around and spreads its reproductive unit.
Are the spores spread by the wind or animals, or how does it spread?
We need to learn more. So one of the reasons why I'm interested in it is we really want to know about how it's moving around on loblolly in particular in this region. We knew about it before on longleaf pine, and it would move short distances by splash when the longleaf is really small, so close to the ground. The spores would, when there's rain, it kind of causes the soil to move up, and that could transfer the spores onto the needles of those leaves. So
Okay.
we're learning more about how it moves in loblolly right now.
How does it affect the tree?
So brown spot needle blight will cause the tree needles to turn red on the ends, especially, but the whole needles can turn red. And then the tree will slough those needles off. So it'll drop its needles early when it's not expected. So, so you might see brown needles now. In the fall, even though pines are evergreen, they do lose some needles, and that's natural, but it's not normal for their needles to be turning brown in the springtime, right?
So it's they usually shed their needles in the fall, like many deciduous trees.
Well, just the older needles. So they'll keep the younger needles, so they're evergreen, but the older needles will slough off in the
Okay.
fall.
It may be some time landowners are observing their trees and needles will fall and really don't think about it. Do you look for, well, I guess as a landowner, what do you look for to see whether that might be a problem on your trees?
If you see that from the bottom of the canopy up, your trees are turning brown, you should send those needles into a laboratory and have them checked.
It affects the tree from the bottom upwards.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that opposite of how they normally shed needles in the fall?
So normally in the fall, it's going to be the older needle. So it's going to be throughout the canopy in the back part of the branches. So the further back on those branches, those needles will be lost. And the forward needles at the tip ends, those are going to stay on. So the last couple of years of needles should stay on. If the trees have a bottle brush appearance, where it kind of looks like one of those brushes you stick down in a glass, because it's only holding 1 year's worth of needles, that's also potentially a symptom of brown spot.
So that's something else to look for then.
That's something else to look for, yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about collections, as you mentioned about that. If I'm a landowner and I notice something looks kind of peculiar, if I want to get that and send it to a lab, what do I do? How do I contain it?
So what you should do is you should reach out to a forester and have them help you to prepare a sample to send it into a laboratory.
If you do not have a forester, I guess you can call the Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry. They have regional foresters that can help you out.
That's right. Yeah, they could get help through the LDAF. That's correct.
Okay. If it's collected, you've talked with the forester, you get it collected, then what happens? What do you send it to you? Do you send it where do you send it?
Yeah, they can send it in to my lab. That's fine. Do you want the address?
Yes, sure.
It's 1401 Reese Drive, number 10138, Ruston, Louisiana, 71272.
Okay. You're collecting samples right now and you're looking at them. I guess you have a group of students who are helping you in this study?
Yeah, so I do. I've got students that are helping out. It's a great training opportunity for them as well, because they get to learn how to process the samples and identify problems on pines.
Okay. Take us through what is your process for your study?
In terms of
In terms of you're collecting this data and you're being able to report to this to who gets the report, and how will it benefit the landowners who are looking for this information?
Well, if we can figure out what's wrong with the pines, then we can help to get the problem under control faster.
Ah, okay. Are you in what you've collected so far? Have you found any particular area of the state that is worse off than others?
Well, I'm working with the Forest Service as well. So the Forest Service is working on it. I'm working on it, and we're actually figuring out where the disease is at across the state right now.
Okay.
It does not seem to be in all the parishes, but we don't know that for sure because all the parishes haven't been tested as far as I know yet.
Ah, okay.
So right now we're trying to kind of get an idea of that. But there does seem to be disease happening in the southern portion, in Evangeline, Rapides, Vernon Parish. We've got it in Bienville Parish, and then up north in Morehouse. It's shown up in Lincoln Parish as well. So several parishes.
Just kind of curious. I know in watching other invasive species, I guess, for example, with the U.S. Forest Service maintaining where the emerald ash borer is making its way through at least Louisiana, it seems as though as it spreads, the parishes are contiguous. So it has moved from one area to the next. I don't think there's a jump necessarily from one parish. I could be wrong, but I go back and look at the data. But it seems the parishes are connected. Do you not find that with the brown spot needle blight? Are there samples coming in from different areas and you can't really make that judgment yet?
Yeah, we can't really make that judgment yet. We still need to get more samples in before we can talk about how it's moving and spreading and all that.
How long have you been collecting data so far?
Basically everywhere I've gotten collections from, they've been positive.
Oh, really?
So it's not really that, well, not every sample, but from all the different parishes that I've been to, I've found the brown spot there.
Oh.
So, yeah.
So it's possible it hasn't even finished being mapped out yet.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So it's early on enough in your study that you're waiting for enough data to come in to make a judgment as to how extensive it is.
Yeah. I just started this project last year, so in the fall. So it's really early on. So just kind of getting students trained and my lab up and going. So all that part is done now. And so we've been working on processing samples. And because the disease, really the conditions are conducive for it to sporulate like right now. So just the past month or two have been really good for seeing it. So we're still able to process the samples throughout the year, but it's harder to detect at later in the year.
So now's the time for it to spread. Is that due to the wet and humid conditions? That's
correct. Yeah. So the rain and the warmth are good for it to produce its fruiting bodies and its spores. So the fruiting bodies, it's kind of like an apple has seeds in it. The fruiting bodies of the fungus contain the spores of it. Oh, okay. And those come out mainly in the spring. If it's a real wet fall, it can happen again, but it's mainly in the spring.
Okay. We had a meeting recently at the LFA office where the Forest Health Committee talked about this, and It seems like there was some mention of last year's drought where very little rain in such an extended period of time occurred. Was that favorable to the spread, or did it hinder the spread?
So there was actually two different things that were kind of noticed with that. So in some areas and some locations, it seems that the drought actually helped. So the trees were able to drop the needles with the that had the pathogen, and then the pathogen didn't get back up into the canopy following the drought, and it wasn't sporulating because of the drought. But in other areas, it was so dry, and the trees had put so much energy into replacing the needles that had been lost from the disease, and then it got really dry. The trees got super stressed, and then unfortunately beetles came in and finished the job. The bark beetles, Ips beetles in particular, or pine engraver beetles came in and killed the trees. So there's sort of two scenarios. And I think it was mainly in the younger trees that they were able to pull it through and potentially recover. So we're still waiting. I'm kind of like saying recover cautiously because we need to wait and see what happens.
Oh, okay, so we're still observing the younger trees that showed signs of brown spot needle blight to see if they will make
they truly recovered and they're in good shape. Yeah.
At the very least, you're expecting stunted growth in those cases, maybe?
I think we need to see. So they definitely had reduced growth rings. Like some of the trees are going to have reduced growth rings, but if they can pull it through and basically escape from getting seriously infected again, they may be fine. Just have a few years where you've got thin growth rings. So
this is going to be a long-term process of observing what's going on with this.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to take some time. But now that there's researchers across the southern region now looking at this process because it's so important. Last year, there was researchers from Georgia, UGA, Mississippi State, Auburn, and Alabama, all over that are looking at this problem.
Have you discovered? I guess everything's too early on, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Is there any reason why loblolly is showing up, being affected more than any other species of pine?
Well, we're really focusing our efforts on loblolly. Loblolly is definitely the most dominant in the area of all the pine trees. So in this region, you've got more loblolly than shortleaf or longleaf or any of that.
Okay. So it's sheer numbers at this point because there's more loblolly.
I think so. Yeah.
I have been told that when the small Ips beetles begin attacking a tree at the top of the tree, there's just no way to treat it. And by the time the damage of the tree is sufficient enough to notice that the tree pretty much is too far gone to save. Is there any hope that a treatment for brown spot needle blight is possible?
Oh, yes. I think looking at different silvicultural practices to figure out the best way to deal with this problem is really important. I think it has a lot to do with silviculture, and that we'll learn a lot as we do these studies. So we're looking at, how best to grow the trees to be able to, minimize damage from the pathogen.
Is there any research in possible genetics to offset that? When genetics is mentioned, oftentimes people will sort of get this idea of a Frankensteinish plant, and it's not really, you're just looking for strengths that can be found in certain pine. You're not changing the genetics. You're just gathering the strongest, the best, straightest, whatever characteristics that you want in a particular pine, and you're gathering and making seeds from that. Is there any possibility that through genetics there could be some help?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so. We're already seeing patterns on the landscape where it looks like certain trees, certain families are doing better than other ones. So just taking advantage of that and promoting the healthy trees so that we can grow pines like we have for so many decades and done such a good job at. Time changes, things change, and we just kind of have to adapt and take the best trees with us as we go.
So this is the next thing, as other issues or diseases or fungi have popped up over the years. We just have to look at it and try and address it the best we can, and let the best of nature that we can gather go forward with the rest of the trees.
That's right. I mean, that's the story of basically how we're here now. And in the history of this region, decay was a huge issue. So we had to figure out which trees were the best to grow, to manage decay, to manage fusiform rust, which pine genetics would do best with that. And this is just the next challenge. I know we can do it. We can get through this one too.
Well, if there's anyone listening and they have curiosity or a suspicion, what would you suggest to them to do first?
Well, I would suggest that they reach out to the Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry, have a forester come out and help them to figure out what's going on with their tree or trees, stand of trees, and then if need be, they can send in samples to my lab.
Okay. If they would like to reach out to you, if they have a forester and they would like to reach out to you, would they do that through email?
Yes, they can do that through email.
Okay. How can they reach you through email?
simsla@lawtech.edu.
All right. Dr. Laura Sims, have we not discussed anything about brown spot needle blight that we need to talk about today?
I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. And we will be looking forward to results of your study, or as it comes along, an update. Hopefully we can get an update next year to take a look at what's going on with brown spot needle blight. Hopefully it gets better and our trees get healthier.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Dr. Laura Sims, Assistant Professor with the Department of Agricultural Sciences and Forestry at Louisiana Tech University. She is studying the brown spot needle blight going on in Louisiana, and most particularly loblolly pines at this particular time. Dr. Sims, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time for us today.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. This episode of Mind of the Forest was sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry and the LFA and its programs, and how you can be part of an organization that supports landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers in the state, go to laforestry.com. You also can send comments or suggestions to me by email at jzeringue@laforestry.com. That's jzeringue@laforestry.com. Or check out the show notes for our contact information. And you can subscribe to Mind of the Forest on your favorite podcast app. Be sure to tap the notifications button so you'll know when the podcast drops each month. And we appreciate you doing that. Remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're Mind of the Forest for you.